Cards Against Humanity.
All right. Well, hey, good morning, church. How you doing this morning? So glad to have you here. Welcome to all you wonderful human beings at the City House. So honored that you joined us. Also, can we put our hands together? Welcome our church family attending online. Can we do that? We love you guys as well. And I think I should say more appropriately, welcome back. I apologize that we were unable to live stream our services last Sunday. The most technical definition that I can give from someone who literally has no understanding of how computers work is that one of ours blew up. And so I don't know what you do about that or what you say about that. I was like, hey, Jordan, why isn't live streaming working? He's like, one of the computers blew up. It's like, oh, okay. It's like you can't get mad. You just kind of roll with the punches. So I do know this, that the blown up part has been replaced with a non-blown up part. And now that computer is working, hence the fact that you're here. So thank you for being patient with us. We love you. Today is a really exciting day to be in church for a couple different reasons. Number one, we all know it is because football's back. That's cool. We know this because this is early Halloween, when grown men dress up like football players. And I just had this realization as we were sitting in service, why is it that we only dress up from the waist up? One day I'm gonna show up just wearing football pants and nothing else, and we'll just see what happens. And it will be weird for everyone, and I'll love every minute of it. But it's gonna be great. Football's back. It's an exciting time in Kansas City. And we get to see what happens when Patrick Mahomes has an offensive line. It's gonna devastate people, guys. I'm predicting multiple grown men crying this season as their hopes and dreams are just shattered as we just scorch earth all over. And so that's exciting. We love football here. We don't hide that. And we're just really exciting. Also, it's exciting because, as Andrew mentioned, today is the beginning of our small group semester, and that's pretty cool. Thank you for the equal amount of excitement for small groups as football. Love that. It's a huge deal of how we connect. And this is not just it's the church I attend, but this is my church. There's ownership here. And I'm an active part of the community. In fact, we have 2 small groups that even all you procrastinators out there, don't fear. Even though they start today, we still have time for you to engage a group. And I want to share just quickly, the first group we have is led by this phenomenal couple in our church named Noah and Jessica Usry. If you don't know Noah and Jessica, they're amazing. Noah was in my discipleship group this last semester, had a chance to get to know him, and there's just such a depth to him. And these guys have decided in the middle of a pandemic to start a small group where they talk about stress and anxiety, and how we can grab God's peace in the middle of this just haywire time that we live in. And so if you are young and cool, or like me, older and not cool, and you want to be a part of this group, you definitely can. And they're downtown Kansas City. And so if anyone you know needs a small group, definitely sign up. The second is we have a financial small group that we are starting, led by Tyler and Becca Green. And they sent such a phenomenal description of the group. I just want to read it because it's so compelling. So we're passionate about teaching financial principles to people in every phase of financial stewardship. So if you need basic budget plan because you feel like you're drowning in debt, we will teach you that. And I just studied this week, the newest Dave Ramsey statistics dropped, and according to that, statistically, 80% of the people would be in that category in this room. Drowning in debt, feeling hopeless, feeling overwhelmed. And I just want to say, if that's you, that doesn't have to be your story, and you're also not alone. And you can do something about that, but it will require something of you. It will require a step. And it could be life-changing. They said if you feel like you're just going through the motions with money, or you're interested in creating long-term wealth, we will teach you. If you want to live a life of radical generosity, we will teach you. It's Sundays at 9:30, and do you know what that means? Childcare. So that's amazing. We haven't been able to offer that a lot this semester because of everything, but this could be a life. There are couples in our church right now whose financial lives were radically transformed because they went through a small group like this. So if that's your story, man, please sign up. As Andrew said, cotfc.com/groups, and I promise it will be worth your time. Does that sound good? Awesome. Let's dive in. Week number 6 of our series, Guards Against Humanity, where we as a church have been teaching through the Gospel of John and collectively learning how to have faith in Jesus, especially through times of uncertainty. And that's exactly what my message this morning is all about, faith. How do we build faith? For the last 5 weeks, we have examined a singular interaction that Jesus had with a woman, and we're never given her name. We don't know if it's Monique or Karen. We don't know if it's Shakira. We're never told. It's just some woman, Samaritan woman at the well. It's maybe one of the greatest interactions Jesus has with another human being. But today, things are going to get crazy. Because today, Jesus, you're not even going to believe what he does. He talks to someone that's not at a well. That's not a woman and not a Samaritan. To which I know what some of you are thinking, like, I thought he only talked to well women. I know, it's crazy. But come to find out, he talks to other people as well. And we're going to just jump right in, right where Will left off last week. Didn't Will just do incredible? So good. Man, we are spoiled here that we have so many amazing communicators, and I'm so proud of that guy. We're going to jump right where he left off, John chapter 4, we're starting in verse 43. John writes, after the 2 days, he being Jesus, left for Galilee. So as we've established in previous weeks, Jesus is kind of a barrier breaker. And he's been doing that all throughout this amazing book, that Jesus, and he continues in this path, that he, the Jewish rabbi, is doing something that would have been unheard of. He's ministering and preaching to Samaritans. He's given 2 days of his life to minister to a group of people that he would have been indoctrinated at an early age to believe we hate these people. That we are better than these people. We are superior to them. But yet he goes anyway and he preaches, and we're told that they hear the word that he preaches and they believe. They believe at first because of the testimony of the Samaritan woman, but then something shifts and they begin to believe because of the words that Jesus speaks. And so after 2 days in this town, he leaves and he heads back to his hometown. And we're about to see this very interesting juxtaposition take place in the life of Jesus. So we have this city where in many ways Jesus should have been hated, but yet he's revered, loved, and respected, and now he's going back home. And I want us to read together what happens when he arrives back in his hometown. In fact, John is going to once again speak to us through context. He's going to make a bizarre and peculiar statement through parentheses. He says in verse 44, now Jesus himself had pointed out that a prophet has no honor in his own country. That's kind of an interesting detail to just slide into that text, is it not? This is what we call in storytelling foreshadowing, right? It's when you're like watching a movie and there's this young, beautiful couple clearly in love and they're kissing and doting one another, you know, endlessly declaring their love for each other, and you think, oh yeah, one of you's for sure gonna die. Like, no chance, it's way too early in the film, and then it's like, car accident, called it, and you're like, you know, nudging your spouse. Like, it's so obvious, and it's like we're given these crumbs that allude to what's about to take place. And apparently at some point, we don't know exactly when, but Jesus has told John that a prophet They receive no honor in their own country. And as I was thinking about that this week, I think this is still very much true today. That it doesn't matter where you are regionally, culturally, that this is a principle of human behavior. And I want to call this the curse of familiarity. I don't know if I created that or that was already somewhere that I stole from someone else, but it's true. That the more familiar you become with someone, the more you relate to that person on a relational level, the natural reaction is to extend less respect and less honor to them. And it's not good, nor is it right. I think it's just a reality of behavior. I heard a humorous example of this recently, and it involved Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Y'all know, you smell what The Rock's cooking, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And so, as we know, The Rock was the voice of Maui in the super popular film Moana. What you might not know is that The Rock has a 2-year-old daughter named Tia, who it just so happens one of her favorite movies is Moana. And so here it is, there's this story that emerges of The Rock attempting to convince his 2-year-old daughter that he is the voice of Maui, and she's just not having it. So he's like trying to do the rap in the song with her, and she's like, "Dad, shut up, I'm trying to watch my movie." And she has no idea that her dad is this international sensation. She cannot grasp the fact that it is actually her father's voice on the movie that she loves so dearly, right? If half the women in our church would faint if you ran into Dwayne Johnson at the grocery store, and this little girl could care less because he's dad. She's not impressed. She loves him, but he's dad. And this is the truth of how this works. On a much, much, much smaller scale, I experienced this in my own life. When I was hired, my very first job in ministry, I was hired at the church that I started attending. So there I am, 23 years old, trying to be a pastor, trying to be legit, trying to act professional, and I've got on a regular basis these sweet old ladies coming up to me and reminding me when they used to change my diaper. Like, there's no scenario or no pathway for success there, guys. It's just not possible, right? Like, who's up there preaching on that stage? Oh, that's that Kackley boy. The Kackley boy. Even that kid that used to break all the glass doors and put ants in the kids' Easter eggs, that kid, that's me. I was the kid. And now here I am on a stage preaching, attempting to be some spiritual leader to these people. And in some ways, this should encourage us because it doesn't matter who you are, you, me, The Rock, even Jesus, that this curse of familiarity is real. And normally it doesn't really matter that much. All right? Like, if you don't want to hear me preach because one time you caught me and Laura kissing in Glen Purtle Hall when I was a teenager, that's all good. Okay? I'm a big boy. I'm going to be all right. But not so much when it comes to Jesus. See, when these people begin to disregard Jesus, discount Jesus because of this gift they've been given, the gift of familiarity, then my friend, you have done yourself a great disservice. It says in verse 45 that when he arrived in Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him. So this is good, right? We're off to a good start. His hometown people, they receive him with open arms. But then it continues that they had seen the reason why they greeted him. They had seen all that he had done in Jerusalem at the Passover festival, for they had also been there. So most likely what this is in reference to, it's in John chapter 2. There's a passage that says that Jesus performed many signs and wonders at the Passover festival, and because of this, the people believed. So because they saw the miraculous, then they believed. Remember that. We're going to circle back to that here in a moment. Verse 46. Once more he visited Cana in Galilee, where he had turned the water into wine, and there was a certain royal official whose son lay sick at Capernaum. And so we're told that when Jesus comes back to town, he goes back to the place where it all started. Right? You ever have one of those nostalgic trip home? And he goes back to where it all began. There was the iconic wedding where he turned water into wine and officially began his public ministry. And we're told that while Jesus is there, he's approached by what the NIV calls a royal official. And this was a man who honestly had a lot of influence. This was a man who was not your average Joe. Most scholars agree that most likely he was the royal official to Herod Antipas himself. So this is a guy that has the ear of the most important man in this region. He comes to Jesus and we're told that he's desperate. Apparently, his son is back home in Capernaum, 20 miles from where they currently are in Cana, and he's on the precipice of death. It says in verse 47, when this man heard that Jesus had arrived in Galilee from Judea, he went to him, and what's the word the text uses there? He begged him to come and heal his son, who is close to death. He begged Jesus. Can we stop for a moment and recognize the irony? That this was a man who had all of the power the world has to offer, yet could do nothing to help his own child. He was completely powerless. And we're given this picture, we can only assume that this, could you imagine to have seen this sight? This Roman royal official gets down on his knees and begins to beg the Jewish carpenter for his power. It really causes us to rethink the way that we understand the world's power to begin with. Church, has there ever been a time in your life where you became so desperate for God to move on your behalf that you were brought to the point of begging? This is the condition of this man. And what I find so fascinating is that if you're anything like me, it seems that there's this theme that runs all throughout the New Testament that Jesus, despite bad theology, despite misbelief, he honors urgency. Have you ever noticed that? Like I look at the story of the woman who was bleeding for 12 years. Ceremonially unclean. She fights through the crowd because she believes, falsely mind you, that there's power in the hem of Jesus' garment. There's not. So she fights through just to grab the hem of his garment, and he heals her regardless. I think of the paralytic man whose friends loved him so deeply, they modeled such urgency to destroy a stranger's roof so they might lower their friend to get him next to Jesus so that he might be healed. I think of the wedding in Cana where Jesus turns the water into wine, officially beginning the road to his own crucifixion. Why does he do it? At the insistency of his mother. Moms, you have no idea how much power you have. Even the mother of Jesus got to push. I look at the blind man in Luke 18, who's calling out to Jesus, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me, as the crowd begins to scoff and mock and jeer. And so how does he respond? He yells all the more loudly, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And it's his urgency that paves the way to the miraculous in his life. We get this picture that for whatever reason, even when we believe things that aren't even true of Jesus, when we passionately pursue him, he honors urgency. And this is what we see happening in this man's life. When the man heard that Jesus had arrived, he went to him and he begged him to come and heal his son who was close to death. And then I love, because in typical Jesus fashion, he's about to say something that comes completely out of left field. He says in verse 48, unless you people see signs and wonders, you will never believe. What? Like, what? If you're anything like me, you read that and you think, that kind of seems a little cold-blooded, Jesus. Like, what's up here, right? Like, this poor sucker, he's on his knees. He's like laying it all on the line. This dude's like trying to give his kid the best shot. And Jesus is like, Shaw, you care about his miracles. It's like, of course, his kid's like needs a miracle. And it causes us to ask why. It causes us confusion. Why would Jesus say such a thing? Why would he respond in such a way? And this is so important. The reason is because Jesus has the ability to see things that we can't see, and he understands things that we just simply cannot understand. He understands that when people experience miracles, they are given the gift of faith. But here's the problem. Oftentimes, it's a fickle and weak faith. Lest we forget the Israelites, who experienced miracle after miracle after miracle during their exile and their time into the promised land. The plagues, the parting of the Red Sea. They experienced mysterious bread from heaven, water from a rock, a pillar of fire at night, pillar of cloud by day. And yet, how do they respond? They responded by worshiping a golden calf. Like, lest we forget the crowds that would yell, Hosanna, upon Jesus' triumphal entry back into Jerusalem. They knew the miracles. Many of them saw the miracles, but the same people would yell, crucify him at the end of his life. Lest we forget the throngs of people that would come to Jesus because they knew the miracles. They wanted their bellies fed. They were there when the 5,000s were fed with just a handful of loaves and fish. It would be the same crowds that would just as quickly abandon him when he said, I want you to eat my flesh and drink my blood. That miracles and signs and wonders, they are good things, church. They're good. In fact, I'm praying and believing for a miracle right now. Many of us have prayed for Mark Edwards, and we've fasted over many of our loved ones who are battling COVID. And just a quick update. First off, we were told at the hospital that Mark was the I can't say only, but the first one who ever made the transport onto the new ECMO machine and survived. No one had survived the travel, and he made it. So praise God for that. First one. The fight's not over. We're still very much in the battle. It's 50-50. It could go either way. He's battling for his life. So he needs prayers. He needs a miracle in his life. So miracles are good. Miracles are a gift. They are this ridiculous, gracious display that God puts in our lives. But here's what we have to understand. They cannot be the foundation upon which our faith is built. Jesus never discourages miracles. He discourages a faith that requires them. And I want that to just sit for a moment. Does your faith require the miraculous? Is your relationship with God father to son, father to daughter, or is it transactional? That as long as you do X, Y, and Z, then I'm here. If you look back on your own life, is the time of greatest spiritual intimacy, passion, the times where God showed up the most powerfully, and the times of your weakest, the times where you felt like he was nowhere to be found? See, what happens when God stops answering miracles the way that we want him to? What happens to our faith when God decides to no longer be the cosmic vending machine? What happens when Jesus decides to protect us against our own humanity and to give us not what we want, but yet something far more loving, what we need? Because those are birthed oftentimes through seasons of pain. What we need oftentimes is birthed through a season of waiting. It's birthed through perseverance. Is my faith reliant upon the miraculous? And see, I believe the reason why Jesus is frustrated here is you have to understand and attempt to see the situation from his perspective. Jesus' own disciples, they had to see the miracles to believe. Jesus' own people, the Jews, they had to see the signs and the wonders to believe. But when it came to the half-breed, sinful, impure Samaritans, they believed because of Jesus' word. That his word was enough for them. Church, this is the kind of faith that Jesus desires to instill inside of you. A faith where his word is enough. And Jesus is about to teach this official a lesson on faith that he's never going to forget. Verse 49. The official said to Jesus, "Sir, come down before my child dies." Do you see what's happening here? Do you see what he's doing? He's the same as the woman who was bleeding for 12 years. He has no idea who Jesus fully is. In essence, he's saying, in haste, Jesus, travel the 20 miles to Capernaum. I need you in the room. I need you in proximity to my son so that your healing power may work and that my son may be healed. He has no idea. He's talking to the Son of God. Jesus was there when God spoke the universe into existence. He doesn't need to go 20 miles. He is God. He has access to limitless power. His very thought could heal that child. So this man has placed Jesus in a box of his finite, limited understanding. And he's saying, I need you to move this way. I need you to work in this manner. And Jesus is about to do something for this man that will set the trajectory of his faith for the rest of his life. It's masterful. Look what he does in verse 50. Go, Jesus replied, your son will live. Said another way, I'm so sorry, sir, but you don't get to see the healing. I'm sorry, I'm not going to work the way that you want me to. But will you take me at my word? The line is drawn in the sand. the miracle's not going to happen the way that you think that it will. But will you allow me to protect you against yourself and birth in you a faith that's not fickle, that's not performance, that's not reliant upon the miracle, but birth in you a faith of breadth and depth where my word will sustain you? And I love how the man responds. In fact, this is my prayer over everyone in our church this morning. Those 7 words that he's about to say change everything. The man took Jesus at his word. The man took Jesus at his word. Hey, how different would your life be if you took Jesus at his word? How different would your faith be if you took Jesus at his word? You know the thing right now that you're just so stressed about, the thing that just overwhelms you, the thing that it just causes you anxiety attacks and it rises up fear. Hey, what would change about that thing if you just took Jesus at his word? No, it's not going the way that you assumed that it would. And no, it's not going the way that you prayed that it would. It's because you have a box that's pathetic and small, as do I. And it's offensive to even think that we can put the God of the universe in our little, tiny, small, pathetic boxes. But Jesus gives us something. He gives us his word. And this man took Jesus at his word. And he departed. And while he was still on the way, his servants met him with the news that his boy was living. And when he inquired as to the time when his son got better, they said to him, yesterday at 1 p.m, the fever left him. And the father realized that this was the exact time at which Jesus said to him, your son will live. He believed, his household believed, and this was the second sign that Jesus performed after coming from Judea to Galilee. So church, as we close, that's simply the question that Jesus presents to this man. It's the question that I want us to grapple with. I want this question in the most loving way I can say it. I want it to haunt you this week. I really do like you, I promise. But will you take Jesus at his word? Is his word enough for you? If you never feel the goosebumps during another worship song, if the check for the exact amount of the financial need doesn't mysteriously ever show up in your mailbox ever again, if the cancer doesn't go away, if the COVID wins, if the need isn't met, is Jesus still enough? Is his word enough? This is the faith that he longs to instill in his people. And sometimes the miracles will come, mind you. And I believe the more faith we have, the more we will see him. Totally believe that. But let's not have a faith that's reliant upon them. Would you close your eyes with me as we prepare to close? As we just create a moment of reflection and contemplation right where you're sitting. You know, it was Jesus who said, anyone who is burdened, tired, exhausted, let him come to me, and I'm going to give him rest. How would your life change if you really believe that statement? What if we really believed intellectually, but even also at a heart level, that I can bring my anxieties, my worries, my fears to Jesus, and he will carry them for me? It was Jesus who said to the woman in John 7, your sins are forgiven. Jesus declared, I have the ability to forgive sin. What if we actually believed that? What if we took Jesus at his word? What would happen to your guilt? What would happen to the things that you can't seem to forgive yourself of if we really believe Jesus forgave us. Imagine that. We would no longer carry those things. What would happen to your shame if you really believed that Jesus had the power to forgive sin? Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. What if we really believed that statement? That Jesus was the exclusive way to God. That the way of the world, it's a lie. That this path of self-fulfillment, it's a lie, but it's only through Jesus. But not only does he save us, not only through the saving grace of Jesus are we saved, but it's only through Jesus that we ever fully encounter truth. Right? It's only through Jesus that this world will ever make sense. It's only through Jesus that the pain and the hatred and the brokenness ever makes sense. But he doesn't just give us truth, he gives us life. What if we believe that through Jesus we could live fully alive? It's why we designed our entire crash course to help us understand what Jesus meant when he says, I've come to give life and give it abundantly, overflowing. So many of us, we live in a spiritual comatose. And it's like the people of Ephesians chapter 5. It says, awake, O sleeper, rise up from the dead. Christ will give you light, the light that is life. I pray that over our church this morning, God. Would you help us? Would you help us, Lord, to be a church that prays with urgency? Help us be the type of people who will humble ourselves, fall to our knees, and we will beg for you to move, filled with full faith that you are capable and able. Blow up our boxes, blow up the limitations that we have placed on you. They're small, they're offensive, myopic, and we throw them away. That you're big and awesome, holy, capable, and interested in moving. Help us be a church of fervent faith, yet simultaneously, Lord, help us be a church that doesn't build a faith on the need of miracles. We want something deeper. Help us lay our foundation on the bedrock of Christ, him crucified and resurrected. Help us be sustained through your word, because we realize that one way the healing's gonna come in this life or the next, that one way you're gonna win and we will reign victorious on your behalf alongside of you in eternity. That one way we know how the story ends, that heaven and earth become one and we will live with you eternally, God. Help us be a people with vibrant faith that is rooted in your word. We don't want to be driven back and forth, tossed by the wind. So Lord, I pray that you would remind every person in this room, every person watching online, the words that Jesus has spoken over their life, the words that they've forgotten, the words that they let go, the words they laid down and walked away from. I pray that you would birth dreams, that you would rebirth vision, that you would reinstill identity, Father. I pray that your truth would cover lies. It would expel the lies of the enemy that he speaks over us. Help us be people that fight the good fight, that finish the race, and keep the faith. We thank you, Lord. We thank you most for Jesus, his words, and his hope over our life. And we give all the glory back to you. And it's in Jesus' awesome name. Everyone said, amen. Do we have anyone grateful for the words of Jesus today? Can we thank him?